people who are listening who aren't familiar with the word empath and what it means, how would you define being an empath?
An empath is a person who is exceptionally attuned to the emotions, primarily the emotions of other people. And in 10, 20% of the cases, if you will, the mental thoughts of other people, um, the physical energies of other people, and for some, even the spiritual inclinations, karma, past lives, if you will, of other people. So there are many different types of empaths. The one commonality among I happen to think there's around, well, who knows? I don't even want to put a number on it anymore. There's like anywhere from 4 to 13 different types of empaths, but those are basically the different subcategories: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And the commonality is that we're just attuned to the emotions of other people and we feel other people really, really deeply.
Is being an empath something that someone like being an empath something that someone is born with, or is that something that everyone
Mhm.
can grow into?
No, no, we're born into it. It's not something you can teach. No, you are not going to classes on how to be an empath. We're going to classes, and these are classes that I offer, how to use our empath gifts that are already there, fine tune them, refine them so they don't the gift does not overwhelm us because it is a tough gig to perceive other people's energy and to ask the question, well, where the hell am I in all of this? Where am I? Where's my energy, right? And so this is the journey that a lot of it, well, not a lot, all empaths are on, is to ask that question and to be on that journey of internal awareness versus more and more and more internal awareness versus our maladaptive patterns of focusing too much on the other person where it becomes out of balance.
Right, that makes complete sense. And you mentioned earlier that I think especially since I feel like 2020, maybe everyone was just at home and just things boomed in woo-woo world. Like I feel like so
Hmm.
many more people, like myself, I rediscovered, I like to say rediscovered. I feel like they never were not there, but I rediscovered my abilities during 2020, 2021. And so with that, when I started really delving more into that on social media, I started seeing the word empath more and more. And so I would love to ask you, knowing that's a very commonly used term these days, what do you see is like what are folks like on the internet social with that being such a huge term these days that is used, what are folks getting right about it, and what are things you see are like,
Hmm.
maybe we're going about this the wrong, maybe people are misunderstanding what being an empath is.
Well, here's what's coming up when you say that is that there's a tendency always, and I don't know if this is necessarily anything unique to this modern era that we're in, is that sometimes we can there can be a very subtle and nefarious like victim mentality. Oh, I'm an empath, therefore I must suffer. I must be at the mercy of everyone else's energy. And that's been there from, I mean, the word, I mean, as in the West, the term was first coined, in my understanding, from like the Star Trek TV show, where it was science. It was considered at the time in the 60s like science fiction. Well, like a lot of science fiction, it becomes reality because science fiction is so very tuned into the collective truth of collective consciousness and higher consciousness. So here we are, 2007, when I get started shifting from counseling to spiritual mentoring for empaths. Not a lot of people knew what an empath was, and yet there was still this insidious little victim mentality. And on the opposite, the victim mentality is one polarity. I'm a victim. I, therefore I'm going to give my power away. Versus, oh, I'm an empath, so I'm totally amazing. I've got like superpowers, and I'm like a hero, and where it's also both of them born of the ego. You On this other side, people tend to play it up. Some people can, and very inauthentically, and some people very darkly, narcissists can pretend to be an empath who actually aren't empaths because they feel that there's a status associated with it. So we got to be very, very careful and aware about both of those trends. That's a really, really great question. I love the question.
Well, thank you. It comes from seeing on social media some posts like on Instagram threads or somewhere where it's like, I'm an empath, so like reasons to not get over my ex, I'm an empath, just like it's like people
Yeah,
using it
right.
as I used to be right from a victimhood
Yes,
mentality.
exactly.
And I was gonna say like it sounds like the way you work with your clients is I was gonna use the word superpower, but I also get what you mean that not letting it get to the ego, like using it as a
Yes.
tool, right? Using
You
this
can say the
identity.
word, yeah, like so superpower, it is a superpower, but it depends on how you use that word. You can use the word superpower, okay, connected to the divine is a superpower. Yes, when it's used with humility and from the right place, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I get what
Otherwise,
you're
it's the
saying.
making
Yeah.
of a cult guru, which we do not want. um, and you mentioned there are 14, right? 14 different types of empaths. So I on your website, I took this really fun. It was like a quiz to find out what kind of empath you are, and I came out as I'm gonna mispronounce it. Heyoka
Yeah,
is
you got it. That's right.
Heyoka. So now
Hmm.
you mentioned there are four: the mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. So are
Hmm.
those are the different types of empathetic ways of being? Is that what that is? That those
Um,
categories are?
yes, if you're going to really look at it big picture. So, like when we break it down from the four, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, then we get uh, subcategories of each. So, like for the physical empath, someone who basically can feel other, and I'm a total physical empath. I can feel other people in my body, and for those of us who are physical empaths, we're the ones who we get like head, like right now it's happening. Like I'm getting head to toe rushes of energy, um, chills, goosebumps, this type of a thing. And some people would also add a specific category, healing empath. So physical empaths are designed to transmute energy to uh, up level it, if you will, and use our gifts to clear energy. And that's why a lot of us are healing practitioners who are empaths. I'm a energy healing practitioner. I don't use that term anymore, but it's what the divine does through me. And so that's why when I have client sessions, my clients always leave the session lighter, clearer, physically feeling way better than they did at the beginning of a session because that's a physical empath is almost always could be considered a healing empath. And then you have like the mental and the spiritual kind of combined. Everything overlaps, right? So then we have claircognizant empaths, intuitive empaths, and the point here is that you're going to recognize yourself, those of you who are listening, in many of these labels. Um, and so we're the ones who are mediums and spirit communicating with spirit. And then you have earth empaths, which some people take that step further and say, okay, well, there's earth category, people that can feel earthquakes before it happens, people that talk to trees, like, myself, can understand the language of trees. And then some people will say, well, that's a plant empath. Okay, well, great. It's just all how on your perspective and your lens. There's a lot of different categories depending on how you look at it. And the commonality, though, really is that we're all in service. We're in service to humanity. We're in service to other people. And we're in service to the divine to bring the divine energy to earth in a more profound way to everyone around us. And that's why a lot of empaths are light holders, light workers, um, healing practitioners, healers. And yeah, the commonality is that we want to help.
Well, when I took the quiz on your website, I looked at what being a Heyoka empath means. I thought, oh, well, it really resonated. So I highly recommend listeners go to Michael's website, which is in the show notes description of the episode, and take the quiz. It kind of astounded me how on point it was. So just want to
Ooh.
shout out that.
Can I ask you like what resonated more deeply? 'Cause let's talk just briefly about what heyoka is. What
Sure.
resonated
So
for you?
I pull it up right here. I took a screenshot of it. So, um, well, there's some parts of the results that are bolded, and the one in the right in the middle, it says, Heyoka empaths usually have had difficult lives of trauma that you have overcome. And I thought that I resonate with, and that because of that trauma, using it, healing yourself and then thus healing others, being that using that experience as information, right? And then in caps it says all Heyoka empaths are spiritual warriors. You came to Earth at an important time in history to be a healer, helper, light holder. And I think I have this podcast, case in point. I love to talk about spirituality. I want people to feel empowered in exploring their spirituality, whatever it looks like to them. And the other thing that really resonated was it says here you on a consistent basis you feel the opposite of what other people are
Hmm.
feeling. You are born to be different. And somebody today, I was listening to another podcast. I think it's called the Gay Men's Brotherhood, and one of the hosts was saying that from an early age, I always just felt different. I didn't any not before even anyone made me feel like I was different. I just felt different, and that's something that resonated with me hearing it. And so when I read in the Heyoka Empath the results and what it meant, saying that you're opposite of what other people feel, or you just feel different from other people, I sometimes I feel like an alien
Hmm.
walking amongst people. So it really resonated.
I'm glad to hear that because there's so much validation in being understood. And this is an appropriate use of labels. I got out of the counseling field because I could not tolerate diagnosing people and slapping them with labels that were, I felt, doing more harm than good in many cases. Here's an example of a label that is a Lakota of the Lakota word, a culture that I've been invited into to participate in as a white guy. And kudos to my medicine elders for doing that and trying to heal the circle and mend the hoop, so to speak. The Heyoka is someone, if you're going to use one word to summarize what a Heyoka is someone who does things backwards, opposite, contrarian, outside the box thinker, different. All of those words apply. That's the true meaning. Um, if you could translate it into the original role that a Heyoka fulfills in the Lakota tribe, it is a medicine person. Now there's no Heyoka empath term in Lakota, but because of what's going on, we're tuning into the collective field, and somehow their Heyoka empath became a thing. And so, okay, we're doing our best to understand. Nothing wrong with that. It's great. It provokes understanding. And I've had countless people say over the years, thank you for giving voice to who I am so that I can feel validated that it's not only is it okay to be different and outside the box and do things backwards, like literally, I will start books in the back. I don't start books in the front. I start them at the back and I read back to front. And that's the kind of thing that a Heyoka person who carries this energy and this archetype um, does. And so to have a label for it for understanding can mean everything. So I'm really happy to hear that that resonated for you.
Yeah, it truly did. And now I'm thinking the next time I feel like a curmudgeon, an ideological or philosophical curmudgeon, because usually when I feel strongly about something, but it comes from a place of like love and understanding, it's often what people don't go there. A lot of people, most people don't. And I think, oh, I feel like a curmudgeon, but now I'm gonna wear that badge proudly.
Hell yeah.
This is when I read this Heyoka description,
Yeah.
I thought this is what I feel like. I feel like I'm always seeing like the gray areas of things, the nuances, or
Mhm.
especially these days. We won't get into it, but these days there's so much black and white thinking, and so it truly resonated. It really did. Um, what is can you share a little bit more about what goes into like let's say I'm a client and I want to work with you one on one on how to better recognize or work with my empathic side or my empathic identity. Where do you start, and how does that journey start with a client?
In the early days, I was doing a lot of like, okay, let's just, and I still do to some extent, not as much. It's really important that we as empaths be grounded. And what does that mean? It just means aware of what's going on in front of us in 3D on planet Earth. And my first spiritual mentor, it was very funny because he knew that like I'm designed to really have my head in the clouds, like a lot of us. And and so it takes a consistent focus for empaths, especially empaths that are the spiritual empaths, to get grounded. So that's number one. I mean, I always look for that. All right. Where are my clients on that journey? And some already have that mastered. If great. Okay. So if you've got that mastered, then we move on to to the next, what's important. And that is to usually for most people, how do I well, this would be the middle stage, I guess, so to speak. How do I stop being drained and stop saying yes and people pleasing? Because I came here to Earth to help. So I want to say yes. I want to say yes. I want to help. I want to help. But how do I do that in a way that I don't drain my energy by saying yes to too many other people when I really want to say no? So we got this dynamic going on among every empath that I've ever met. We need to protect our energy, not by shielding and bubbling, which is fine if it works for you. I've just never found it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for most of my clients. It can temporarily be helpful, but how do we really protect our energy is we have an internal awareness of what's really going on inside. Do I want to say no? Yes. Can I give myself permission to say no? Uh, maybe, maybe. So the work that I do is just basically getting my clients in the middle stage to start thinking about, okay, maybe you could, how can you truly protect your energy by carving out time for yourself, exercising, preserving your time, your energy, the demands that are on you. Okay. And so we work with that. And then the late stage, if you will, is those who are ready to be light workers and want to share the gifts out in the world. And I work with a lot of clients and I mentor a lot of clients for their businesses, for light worker businesses, to get their businesses off the ground, to get them running smoothly. And again, in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming because the empath is very sensitive to energy. We need to do things differently than other business practices. And so that's why the Soulpreneur startup program that I have, it helps my clients work through those issues unique to empaths in a way so that we can be light workers and we can be on social media if we want. Ding, 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 if we want. And if it's aligned with our dharma and our service and our soul contract, how do we do that in a way that doesn't overwhelm us?
I so admire that you start your work with your clients with grounding and getting having that balanced approach to. I mean, I'm a still recovering people pleaser. I get it. And
Oh,
so, and the reason I say that is because I feel like when I was following more psychic mediums, light workers on social media, and maybe this is something I was picking up on psychically from their content, or maybe something I just happened to notice, but it seems like there are many people who delve into this line of work and this practice, and they seem to really like expend themselves very easily and quickly, and then they're left drained. And sometimes I've noticed that they'll step into that. I don't mean to be mean saying this, but they'll step into like a victimhood mentality. Like, look what I'm doing for you all, and putting it on their clients, their followers. Like, look what I'm doing. Look, like this is a lot for me. And I wonder, like, oh, I wonder if they just need to set some more energetic boundaries. And so
mhm.
I see how important that is to um to set those firm and healthy and self-loving boundaries, because it's so easy, especially for us recovering people pleasers. It's so easy for us to be uh, be of service in a very unbalanced way where we're just
Yeah.
we have no energy left for ourselves or for other things that we need to attend to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're very good with boundaries. Like, you started the interview like we want to get right to it. And I sense that about you. And that's a perfect example of health, of being able to maintain your energetic mental health. Love it. Right. We need more of that. And so like for those of you that are listening, I guess I always love to offer little prompts for us, like in the moment. The question is, how can I, like right now, today, as I'm listening to Michael and Juan, what what boundary can I set today? What boundary am I being asked by my higher self to set today so that I can be healthy for the rest of the day and tomorrow? Right? So that is a very powerful question. Asking questions of ourselves is a really important skill as we continue to evolve.
I love that. I love that. It reminds me of when, in the past year, as someone who likes to be informed about what goes on in the world, I tell myself, wait, I don't need to look at what's going on in the world on my social and in a podcast and over here and over there. Why don't I just choose one thing where I'm still feeling informed, but I'm also protecting my energy and not feeling overwhelmed, and whether it's social media use or the news or it's there's some newer conversations happening in the last couple years about when we I forgot what it's called, like when we over overwhelm ourselves with like self-help podcasts and books when maybe we just need to look inside us a little more and look at it, like see where our own compass is leading us. And not that self-help is, I mean, look, I'm one of those podcasts. I'm not that self-help or psychic resources are negative. It's just about, if I'm going through something, is what I need right now to listen to five different podcasts on how to get over a breakup?
Thank you.
Or should I be maybe choose one podcast, listen to it, but maybe more importantly, just be with myself? So that's what I'm getting to, is like setting those energetic boundaries
Yes.
and being and asking yourself, like, what you just asked the listeners, what do I need to set firm and loving boundaries? It's
You know,
something, yeah, it's a
yeah,
challenge.
it's a challenge and it's an opportunity as well because what you've just framed it as and what you've just shared is stimulating in me that I'm doing the same thing, especially these days. And I think it's such an invitation that you just presented for all of us to really become hyper aware of is this really necessary right now? I made a decision about 10 years ago. I used to be a voracious reader and a voracious consumer of podcasts and even before they were cool, like 10 years ago, like and content. And I decided, no, I'm going to stop reading books. Um, I'm just going to let that go for a while. And it's been 10 years. And I actually was one of the best things I ever did. Now, ironically, I'm getting to the point where now that I'm writing my own book, I'm feeling, or my third book, the new one, I'm feeling a need to re-engage with podcasts and re-engage with books again. And and I'm feeling those juices being turned back on. And the larger point that you're making is, especially in the world that we're in right now, because I have this desire, and as many of us do, to engage with news and content and social media because it's of the positive aspects. Like it helps us grow our thinking. It really does. And that's what I'm looking for. I also am very aware that because the news and the vibe right now is so challenging for sensitive people with so many difficult things and conversations happening and wars and politics is cuckoo, we have to be really extra careful about what we engage in. So I've really pulled back from the news, and I encourage all of us who are listening to me, play a little game with yourself. All right, play a game with yourself, but do a little experiment over the next 24 hours if you feel so called, or sometime soon, where you just disengage from something that you normally engage in and watch what it does to your energy. You'll feel 1,000 times better, most likely.
Yeah, while we were in, and I do this once in a while we were in Easton Mountain, I had blocked all my social media apps. I think all my social media apps while I was there, and I blocked it so that for me to unblock it, this is not an advertisement, but there's this little device called the brick. And in order to you lock your phone, like let's say I choose Instagram, Facebook, etc., the social media apps as a group, and I block that group of apps. For me to unblock it so I can use them on my phone, both the apps and the website versions of the apps, I have to physically go to this brick and tap my phone to it. So I had blocked them. I was in Easton away from the brick, and so
Mm.
I just couldn't use them. And it really reminded me just how these are all stimulants, right? And we live in a culture where the scarcity, this feeling of like a scarcity of information. We need to know everything right now. We need to see what people are, what steak someone ate, or what sunset they saw, where they're vacationing, and those are all lovely things. And I love cat videos and dog videos as much as the next person, but it's like our brains, our beings were not built to have to intake so much at once, or to hear the same or read the same headline over and over and over again. I think, like to
Yeah.
your point, there's a difference between being informed versus um, being overstimulated. Yeah, it's so
Yes.
important to 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 realize that about ourselves and come to learn about ourselves, how much we can take before we overextend ourselves. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted to next ask you, this is conversation is so lovely. I want to next ask you about your how you navigate the topic of intuition with your clients. Because we talked about the identity of being an empath, being empathic, and the benefits to learning how to harness that ability, that superpower in a way that's healthy, it's self-serving, and also of service to others. But with intuition, after the workshop you did at Easton Mountain, something that I really loved about your workshop that I'm very personally passionate about is there may be, I don't know, 30 to 40 people in that workshop, including myself. And I'm sure there were many folks in there that thought, well, I'm not a psychic medium. I'm just going to try this out. And you really made it such a safe space for people to just kind of take the leap because based on that workshop, I imagine you feel the same way that I believe we all have that ability to connect with those on the other side. Maybe to different capacities, capabilities, but I believe we all have that connection. So what I want to ask you is when it comes to working with clients or in groups like that about with tapping into intuition or tapping into mediumship, yeah, what do you hope that folks get from your workshops tapping into their intuition? What is your mission for intuition?
One word, astonishment. Um, and related to that, evidence that we are much more connected than our small little pea brains give us credit for. We walk around in the world and our egoic mind says, oh, it doesn't even know there's spirit existing. And so how could it understand or um, how could it understand that there's something greater than itself? Well, in the workshops, what we do and what in all of my classes, you we get evidence, and this tickles me personally. I'll never get tired of it as a medium, as a channel for spirit, to just see how interwoven spirit is in our everyday lives all the time, 24/7, and how like I've been using this metaphor lately, ordering off the menu of, okay, like what do you want today? What like so we can ask, we have permission to not only ask questions for intellectual understanding. All right, I want to ask my spirit guides, how can I manifest a soulmate? That's my personal question. All right, I've been asking that for what seems like forever. And so, yes, if when we ask that question, or when I ask that question, I'll get a often, not always, but often we'll get an intellectual or a feeling, and a feeling that can be then interpreted by our intellects. Oh, maybe I should try speed dating. I'm just using this as an example. All right. So there's that. And the where were we going with this? We have this constant loving presence with us that's with us all the time. And ordering off the menu also means that, all right, well, setting the intellect aside, what do I want to experience today? So every morning when very first thing that I do when my feet hit hit the floor, and getting out of bed, I set my intentions for the day. And that's something that we have carte blanche. Like, all right, I want to feel sunshine today. That's something I say a lot to Spirit. Make me laugh. Like before this interview, I'm like, let's have moments of just spontaneity and fun and joy and laughter, right? This is what it means to really be a spiritual being living in this time on planet Earth, is that we can order off the menu and we get free will to decide, is this menu gonna taste, is this dish gonna taste delicious or is it gonna taste not so hot? Right? And we get to do that. So that to me is just as a human being, a divine being in a human body, it never ceases to astonish me the level of spirit being like we're just puppets on strings a lot of the time. They orchestrate meetings, the people that we're meant to meet, us meeting at Easton, and now here we're doing this great convo, and this is going to spread like, out. And so it's just amazing. It's a really great question.
I love how you put, and something I say all the time to clients, and just anybody that asks me about spirituality and being connected is exactly what you said. This is spirit, the divine. It's not something that we have to reach for. It's just there. We just have to acknowledge it. And I love how you put that in your own words. It was beautiful. And something that I noticed in that workshop you did at Easton Mountain on mediumship is I could see in people's faces, people who just assume based on how they were reacting, were like, "How did I get that?" And it just showed them that
Right.
they can
Yes.
access this side of themselves. And I have to say, I told you this at Easton in person after your workshop, um, that when you were sitting there, we were all sitting on the floor, most of us. You were sitting there, and as I was looking at you, I saw you with my mind's eye just glowing, and I also felt like you were kind of like working as a conductor of the energy, and I could
Mhm.
feel it, and it was so tangible for me, and it was just such a beautiful experience. Um, yeah,
Wow. Yes, conductor is the right word. I hadn't ever, I don't think I've ever thought of that it's a beautiful reflection because it lands. It's exactly what I do and what many of us do. And is to just and it's really like being a conductor is really simple. It's not a difficult thing to do. I created that workshop in my intentions ahead of time. I saw it happening, and this is how manifestation works. It's easy actually when it comes down to us. And this is the message of Christ, not in a religious sense, but what he taught was, you know, um, which is what Christ taught is what all spiritual traditions teach, is that it's really simple. Um, choose, make a choice, believe, faith, trust, belief, all related. I saw that workshop before it happened as I see all the results from clients that I hold space to. And this is one of the things that I people sometimes don't understand about my work is that the session that I have with you is just the tip of the iceberg. So the way that I work is I work with you in advance of the session and uh, after the session, the clients that sign up for more intensive mentoring packages with me, the session is just the intellectual understanding. What I really do is I help open doors as an intercessor is the word that I see things and I believe things for you that will happen that you're wanting to create in your life. Um, and then they're more likely to happen because you have someone holding space for your visions, amplifying your intentions, even when you don't necessarily believe it. So,
wow,
yeah.
that is. So I'm just thinking of being that person to sit in that energy for the client across from you, and even if they may not recognize their power, like you are recognizing it with the intention of for them to then recognize. That is just so beautiful. Wow. Wow. I think that's a really wonderful note to end on as we wrap up. I would love for you to share with listeners where they can find out more about you and where they can find out more about your November event.
Yeah, empathconnection.com is my website, empathconnection.com, and you can take the quiz. Encourage you to take the quiz there. That'll automatically put you on my mailing list, and you'll get my weekly messages about all of my offerings. And the class that's coming up here that I offer usually once a year is the mediumship class. It's designed for all levels. We have no problem working with beginners, no problem working with intermediates, and no problem working with advanced mediums. It's a class that works for wherever you're at, and you will, just like Juan was mentioning, be and my intention is to have you be astonished and amazed and have you have those aha moments and revelations, one of my favorite words, that just how gifted you are and how in tune with spirit you are. So that's the mediumship class that's coming up in November as the next cycle. I do spirit school, I do personal retreats, and you can all find that all out at empathconnection.com.
Wonderful. And whatever you're comfortable sharing, is there any sneak peek or peek into what your third book is about or a theme that's resonating with you as you write the third
Yes.
book?
Yeah, it's well, I don't get to choose the title. I'm going for a publisher this time, self-published the previous two. And this one, if I get to choose the title, it would be like how to become a human god or how to, basically that's the theme. A lot of people don't like the word God, so I think I would use something a little bit different, but basically that's the theme, how to be in a human body and also a divine being that is weaving energy, creating miracles, creating magic, while still in a human body and walking the earth and having a seamless integration and fusion of both our 3D human selves and our 5D spiritual selves at the same time.
That is so exciting. Well, can't wait to get my hands on that book when it comes out. But Michael, thank you so much for your time. This was really a lovely conversation. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Enjoyed it so much.
Follow the podcast and please leave a review. If you want me to talk about a specific subject on the podcast or you have a question for the podcast, go to juanfranciscospirit.com and go to my contact page and submit that question.